Howdy, all. Happy Thursday. Sorry about yesterday. Logistical problems. Me up in Toronto. That's all. It's always a problem up there. Russ, I have to say, I really hate it when celebrities go into the broadcast booth and open their mouth, because sometimes they sound like blithering idiots. And I'll say this. Back in the day, and I think I don't know if it was an All-Star. No, it was a Chicago Cubs game, and Ronald Reagan, as president, goes in to the broadcast booth with, I think, Harry Carey and Steve Stone, and he was trying to do play. He used to do play-by-play like on the radio in the 30s,
right?
And it was so painful because I liked him as a president, political stuff aside, but even if it was like, somebody I didn't agree with, it was painful. It was really bad.
I didn't get it.
And yes. And that's Peter, you're going down the line, the word exactly where I'm going down to. Susan Sarandon, who I like very much as an actress. She is a well-known New York Rangers fan. She goes into the broadcast booth last night on NBCSN, and she's obviously a fan, and she obviously doesn't understand that she's in the broadcast booth, because she's reacting like, whoa, yeah, wow, ooh, and like, okay, they're doing play-by-play. Shut up.
Well, here's the thing.
Well, there's two issues there, but go ahead, Russ.
I was going to say, I think they put her in a bad spot. She shouldn't have been put between the glass. Like, that's a bad spot, because I think a lot of people would have trouble with that spot.
Yes.
And without any training, I don't think anybody should ever go between the glass. So I think that was a mistake. If you'd had her just up in the booth, I think it would have been better. Then if you hear the occasional, ooh and ah, it's not as big a deal. I don't think she realized, like, with that spot, that you're really only supposed to you're only really supposed to speak when there's a lull from the other guys. And that's not her fault. That's like a lack of NBC telling her what to do.
That's the producer's fault.
That's the producer's
fault. If you brought her down to talk with Pierre McGuire, first off, you have to know your audience and your co-host, and that's Pierre McGuire. So there's point one. Point two is, when the play's over, then talk.
Yeah,
right. Pierre will ask you a question or something like that.
Yeah, Susan Sarandon was never at Shattuck St. Mary's, so I don't know whether.
But they said one thing that I really felt bad. Like, I guess Pierre, and I didn't watch the whole game, I just saw highlights and such, but Pierre was trying to talk to her, and she goes, I can't hear you because I had these headphones on. And it's like, see, and again, that's where I go back to the producer. That's not her fault,
Yeah. The only thing more embarrassing would have been him asking about Tim Robbins.
Right.
So just on a side note, I have a little Susan Sarandon, Tim Robbins story.
Okay.
So just because it's fun, and I like Susan Sarandon, and I met her and Tim once. And they were in Vancouver, and I was in a shop on 4th Avenue, and it was a Blundstone shop, the Aussie boots. Mm-hmm. So I was in there, and I was trying on boots, and Tim Robbins came in, and he had bought a pair the day before, but they didn't fit well. So he and Susan come in, and they put it down, and I'm looking, the pair I don't fit right. And the guy goes, well, actually, he's got what you want. So Tim and I traded boots, and I wore his, and I ended up buying his boots that he returned. He didn't take mine. They just couldn't find one that fit him. And sort of met them, and they were totally nice, lovely people. And Susan Sarandon is as beautiful in person as you think she is on the screen. And then we just went on with our day, and that was the end of it.
I did meet Tim Robbins once too. Actually, it's kind of funny because I really choked. It was at a charity bowling event with like a lot of Mets players, and my best friend was chickening out trying to get any kind of autographs. So I went up to him in Mike Piazza and got some autographs, and I said, hey Tim, I really like your movies. I loved, and then all of a sudden my brain just went blank, and I said Mission from Mars. And he looked at me like, oh, you're the one. And he smiled politely.
Oh my God, Russ, that is the worst movie.
That's all I can remember.
Oh my.
Mrs. Russ, you could smack him right now.
He knows the story.
Mission from Mars. That movie is terrible. Gary, guys, I swear to God, Gary Sinise is wearing eyeliner in that movie.
Again, I had to come up with something.
Oh my God.
You couldn't come up with Shawshank?
I didn't.
Yeah.
My mind went blank. It was a moment. It was a bad moment.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's get started with the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, March 15th, 2018.
I'm Peter Tessier up here in Winnipeg, and just get it out of the way. Beware the Ides of March.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and I have no idea what you're talking about, Peter.
And I'm Julius Caesar, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Really, I'm Michael Agello. Eklund will be joining us in a little bit. That's what a master's in history does for you, Peter.
Yeah.
Almost. Okay, let's talk about the games from last night first. And I have to start with this one, Russ, not because of the result, but because of the article that Larry Brooks wrote this morning regarding the Rangers' 4-3 victory over the Penguins. And I didn't read the entire article, but I got the gist of it after a little bit, where he's basically saying the Rangers are screwing up they're not tanking, but they're screwing up what they're trying to accomplish by playing so well since all the trades of Nash and Grabner and McDonough. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10 games, and they beat the Penguins last night. And, I mean, I can understand it, but the thing is, when you're trying to lose – unless you're playing bad players, I mean, the players are going to go out there and try to win. The coach is going to go out there and coach to win. It doesn't work. There is an art to tanking and losing, and they're not following the blueprint.
Well, I don't think Larry sort of got the message. They are not tanking.
No, I don't think they are.
And so, like, I wouldn't expect them to try and go out to lose. You can't lose with Henrik Lundqvist in net. And Georgiev is probably an NHL backup quality, and he had a good game last night. Look, I mean, end of the day, the Rangers played the Penguins backup, right? And he wasn't very good.
Oh, they played Casey DeSmith? Okay.
They played DeSmith, and he wasn't very good. But there were some big plays in that game and big moments. And at the end of the day, what Larry wrote is just to get the average fan upset, right? But if you do the math, it's not going to matter whether they win out or lose out or go 500. It's going to affect like 1 or 2 draft slots. That's in the end, that's all it's going to do. And so, because I run it with somebody who does the math, and they'll probably pick around 10th, and maybe in the worst case, they'll go 12th or 13th. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. What does matter, though, is that you don't have a bunch of guys going to the offseason not knowing what's going to happen, feeling bad about what's going on there. And so, they're trying to do both ends of it. And I don't think it's bad. Like last night, the big moment in the game was Georgiev stopped Malkin on a penalty shot. Well, that's a pretty big deal, right? Especially for a Russian goalie. That, how are you going to, you're going to tell that kid, hey, psst, you got to let that go in. No. So, these guys are going to try as hard as they can. The unfortunate thing, if you're trying to tank in New York, they play at Madison Square Garden, and players always want to play their best there, especially young players. So even if you bring up young players in Madison Square Garden, sometimes you get better performances out of them than you'd hope for. And so that's why I don't think it's even feasible.
But if you're bringing up young players, these guys need to play well because they're also looking at their careers.
Right.
They have to. And you know, look, I was going to say when you first brought it up, Mike, not everyone can be the Vancouver Canucks and literally just quit.
That's true.
Collectively and know that the season's over and be done. And thankfully the Rangers aren't. And that's a good thing. But I think Larry Brooks sort of misses the point here in that the bigger picture for the Rangers is they don't really need to tank to get a top draft pick.
Right.
They needed to make sure they weren't going to lose what they had for nothing and do a smart retool. And I think, and going back to Vancouver again, we've heard the word retool for 3 years from the Canucks.
Right.
And they're probably looking, and I know their fans are looking at the Rangers going, wait a second, this is actually how you do it. And sure enough, they are. If the Rangers are in a top 15 draft pick, or a top 16, that's fine.
Right.
if they move up and maybe some things go wrong, that it's cherry on the cake. But what they got back in those trades, that's going to be the real determination of what the retool is, not how they finish the season.
Well, I'd like to see somebody tell Neil Pionk or John Gilmore to lay down and let somebody walk around them. This could be the only chance that they have to play in the NHL. Right. So, and I understand, the motivation of the individual player to put forth their best effort. But if the organization, and I'm not saying the Rangers, but going back to like what the Leafs did in 2016 and what the Sabres did in 2015. If you're going to manage your team to lose on purpose, it's almost as much work as trying to manage your team to win. Remember, Tim Murray, any goaltender that stopped a puck got traded. He traded Neuwirth. He traded Jonas Enroth. He made 35 saves, and Enroth was gone to Dallas. Mm-hmm. In 2016, at the end of the year. Yeah. Garrett Sparks played a lot of games, and Garrett Sparks was not ready for the NHL. He had his first game shut out. Everybody was celebrating him. Then he got hurt. Then he came back. And at the end of the year, Garrett Sparks, because I don't think he was ready for the NHL at that point, lost games. And the Leafs, I think they finished in dead last by a point or two. So that was a difference. That's the thing. It's tough to manage a tank or a decline.
It is. At the end of the day, they're doing what they're doing. People pay a lot of money to see tickets. They don't want to totally disappoint them and not think they have a reason to ever show up at the Garden again. And so, the young guys are getting a chance. And if they play well, that's better for them going into next year than if they don't play well. So you have to look at it that way. I don't think Larry's looking at it that way. I think he's just trying to rile up a fan base. Yeah. The Rangers have never had a first overall pick, right? So the idea is that is what he's playing to now, because I've seen that become like a trend online. Oh, well, we've never had the first overall pick. When is that going to happen? Well, newsflash, not this year either.
No.
Right. Now, switching to the other team, Peter, I wanted to ask you about this because I saw the Penguins on Saturday in Toronto, and they lost to the Leafs. And Jamie Alexiak is playing in their top four. And that's a problem. And I'm not saying Jamie Alexiak's not an okay defenseman.
No, but he's not a top four.
But he's not a top four defenseman. And this was their sixth defenseman last night. Letang, Dumoulin, Justin Schultz, Mata. Okay? You're five now, and these are not your 5-6. I think Ruedel is on their bottom pairing, but Chad Ruedel and Alexiak. Alexiak is playing on the second pairing. And this is not Trevor Daley. This is not Ian Cole, and it's not Ron Hainsey. And if Matt Murray's on the verge of coming back. They say he's skating. It's getting close, but they want to make sure he's 100% before he does come back. But they don't have the defense that they had last year. And last year, people were saying their defense was an Achilles heel.
Yep, and the best defense is a good offense. And, Pittsburgh's right up there in goal, in total goals scored this year. And maybe that's what they decided with Rutherford. Rutherford? Rutherford. I'm losing my mind. Decided at the trade deadline by shipping out Cole and doing these deals that they were content with where they were, and they were going to do what everyone decided they were going to mimic when they won the last cups is speed and pressure. So if they can get the puck out of there, they're probably way more content to roll three lines with an incredible transition game and move it down the ice faster than anyone else and say, come catch us. The key is you got to be able to get the puck. And if the strategy is simply get the puck and move along, that's fine. And hopefully Murray stands on his head again. Is it a flaw? Sure.
Murray does correct a lot of ills, and Carter Rowney was in there last night. He's not going to be in there when the playoffs start. That's just a game where, you know what? It's a good win for the Rangers. The Penguins go, so what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh did dominate possession against Toronto in the first half of the game, and they couldn't beat Frederik Andersen. And the Leafs were opportunistic with their goal scoring, and they were able to win that game. And only at the end of the game did Pittsburgh get on track. Now,
Now, how is Freddie doing today?
Well, that's that, and this is the thing. The game last night. Frederick Andersen, and this was weird, Russ. Late first period, there's a scrum, in front of the net. Radulov crashes the net. Roman Polak pushes him into the crease, as most defensemen do nowadays.
Yeah,
and the video shows Radulov's knee hitting Andersen in the head and snapping his neck a little bit. But and now this is the thing. You also saw, and I saw that the people didn't see this on TV because it was going to a TV timeout. When he gets up from this scrum or this incident, it looks like he's wincing in pain. It looked like it was, and Radulov had landed on his leg. As he got up and he skated to the Leaf bench during the TV timeout, he was sort of gingerly flexing his left leg. No, he stayed in the game, stayed in the rest of the first period. Dallas scored a goal right after that. They tie up the game later on. They took the lead early in the second period. And midway through the second period, unbeknownst to everybody, including Babcock, including Curtis McElhaney, he skates off the ice and goes to the Leaf dressing room. McElhaney said after the game he was charting faceoffs, and all of a sudden they're handing him his glove and his blocker, and he's in the game. So they didn't know after the game, and you have to love this from Mike Babcock. There is an art to not answering a question.
Yeah.
He comes out after the game, and obviously every reporter's first question is, what's the status on Freddie? He says, I haven't really talked to the medical staff. I just came right in here after the game. I'll get an answer for you. Yeah. Now, this morning in Buffalo, he comes out. What's the status of Freddie? I haven't talked to the medical staff, and I'll get it. Basically, he didn't say I'll get an answer for you, but he downplayed the injury. They just said, we're playing it safe. We called up Garrett Sparks on an emergency recall.
That's not playing it safe.
No, and Curtis McElhaney was scheduled to start the game tonight anyway, so now he is playing again. When he played half the game last night, he joked after the game yesterday, well, Curtis got a warm up for tomorrow. But this is a concern because remember, Freddie Andersen got concussed in the second last game of the regular season last year against Pittsburgh. I think it was Sestito that did it. Mm-hmm. He was supposedly concussed, or there was head contact when Corey Perry ran into him early in the year and he didn't miss a game. I mean, this is an ongoing concern, especially for somebody who's playing as many games as Andersen does. Now, for the people who said Andersen needed a rest, well, he's going to get a rest, but this is not the type of rest I think they wanted him to get. Right.
It sounds like he didn't go to the dark room, right?
No.
Right.
Well, I mean, we don't know. We don't know. He left. He never left the ice after the incident.
Well, he never left the bench, so he couldn't have gone to the dark room.
Well, no. Okay, he never left the ice after Radulov fell into him, so he stayed in the game. He went to the locker room during the first intermission. He came out. He played the first half of the second period. He went to the locker room and never came back and never sat on the bench.
Okay, so that's probably when he went to the dark room.
Right.
And so they're hiding that fact and the fact that he probably has some sort of concussion, and because they're playing it safe means, well, he's had concussions before, like you said, or at least the one that you know of, and of course there's always other ones that we don't know about.
Right, the Perry thing, they said it was neck, and he played the next game, so they never went down the concussion road.
Right, but this one, and I did see a replay, and it does look like it is going down that road, regardless of he definitely was flexing his leg because a big guy fell on it. But at the end of the day, it's the head injury you're worried about, and I think right now it is a concern because this is a guy where literally he could come back. Let's say he comes back in a week, right? Mm-hmm. If anything else happens, incidentally or otherwise, he could be out for the year because when it does seem like he is a little susceptible to this now. And now again, people always say, well, some shots look innocuous, some of them like Radulov's look worse. Once it gets to the point where it's not that big of a shot, like with Crosby in the Winter Classic, where he was out for the season after that, right?
Yeah, and part of the next season too.
Part of the next season. He's not in Crosby territory, but for a goalie, I think he's heading down that path. I do.
Now, Peter, the thing is with Andersen, and I think there's a comparative here between Toronto and Winnipeg. Although I think Winnipeg's defense is better than in terms of their depth than Toronto is. They depend heavily on their goaltender to be at the top of his game. And Andersen has been, like Hellebuyck, Andersen has been great since I'd say the beginning of November through to last night. If he's out, just like if Hellebuyck was out, I don't have a good feeling about the Leafs getting past the first round. Now, I think he'll be back. It doesn't seem too serious. Babcock is downplaying it, but still, this is big because even if they get Austin Matthews back, if Andersen may be the MVP of this team simply because he's faced the men most shots in the NHL.
Absolutely, he is. And the biggest thing with Andersen is if he is out, and McElhaney has done an admirable job in backup. I mean, you couldn't complain about what you gotten out of McElhaney.
No.
It changes the way Mike Babcock has to build his tactics for the team in the playoffs, depending on who they play. And that, I mean, I know everyone thinks it's an assured thing of Boston, but that's changing pretty quick because right now it wouldn't be Boston, would it? If the playoffs started today,
no, I think Tampa's still in first.
Oh, okay. So, but I mean, if someone switched around, like if Philadelphia moved up, right?
Well, right now,
Philadelphia's only 4 points behind Pittsburgh.
But they're also only 4 points of being out too. Like it's
okay. There's right.
Tampa's
That's sort of really not the point I was just saying. There is opportunity for change. Does it happen? Not likely, but it changes the way you have to address things, and that's the bigger point. And if you're hanging on with a defense that is probably not your ideally designed defense, now you've got a bigger issue at play in how you structure things. And I think Mike Babcock absolutely has the chops to figure this out and adjust in things. It's whether with some of the younger players on his team, the Marners, the Nylanders, the Matthews, the younger guys can adjust their games from what comes naturally to them and what they need to be doing. And that'll be the biggest headache if they have to go with a backup to start the playoffs.
Well, Russ, let's switch to Dallas and then we'll come back to Toronto for a second, because I looked at Ken Hitchcock in about the middle of the first period, and it looked like it was Mount Vesuvius behind the Dallas bench, because Lettinen lets in possibly the worst goal of the year by flubbing a pass, putting it right on, or right in front of the net where Kadri buries it, and then gives up a terrible rebound on Van Riemsdyk's first goal. Lettinen gave up 4 goals on 26 shots, and they lost to Montreal the night before. And we know that Dallas came back and got a point in this game, but again, it's a similar story. If they have to rely on Kerry Lettinen, they're toast.
Yeah, there's no question. It's Bishop or bust. And let's face it, I mean, Hitchcock doesn't have the greatest track record with goalies. Other than Ed Belfour, it's been spotty ever since. Go ask like Robert Esch, go ask him how he and Hitch got along. I mean, it's just I feel bad because
since Ed Belfour, wait a second, you're forgetting what's his face. He
who's that?
He
wasn't with Turco.
No, he wasn't. Okay. Sorry, I thought Turco was there.
No, Turco was post-Hitch, I believe.
Okay.
I mean, if he wasn't, it was maybe a year with Hitch.
Yeah, and Jake Allen and Elliott in St. Louis. I mean, he flipped and flopped with them constantly. So yeah, but
this is a bad situation for the team because it's a really good team, but Ben Bishop does get hurt a lot. He does.
And what they're trying to do is, and finally, you can't go with all your eggs in one basket. They for most of the season, or a great portion of the season, they had Radulov with Sagan and Ben on one line. Last night they moved Radulov off that line. They had Sagan and Ben with like Brett Ritchie to sort of spread out the offense a little bit, and it worked. But the thing is, they came back. They took a 4-2 lead, and then I don't know if they sat back or they just depended on their goaltender, and that's the problem. They gave up the lead. Van Riemsdyk scored a hat trick. He tied the game. Dallas took the lead again, and then the Leafs tied it with 15 seconds left in regulation, killed off a penalty in overtime, and won in the shootout. So this was a game where, that Dallas really should have won, but because of the defensive liabilities, I think, and that may kill them, Russ. They have 10, 11 games left in the season. They're bleeding points, and that's a point that they lost.
Yeah, the thing about it is, and I remember saying it just yesterday, like when Carolina choked away that lead, if you don't have good enough goaltending to hold on to a lead in this league, what are you going to go, one round in the playoffs? Yeah. It's nice to have a resilient team, and that resilient team could get through maybe the first round of the playoffs. But after that, you have to be able to lock down a lead in this league.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're not going very far. And unfortunately, that's where Dallas is at right now, though. If Bishop's 100%, they probably can lock down a lead. But is he going to be 100% the rest of the year? I don't know.
And I love this. I love this line from Tyler Seguin after the game. A reporter asked him, competing against a team of Toronto's caliber, what does it mean for the rest of your trip? And Seguin, who used to play for the Bruins and obviously doesn't like the Montreal Canadiens, it means, where was it last night in Montreal against a team that didn't have that caliber?
Right.
So that's a commentary on the Habs, but it's also a commentary on his own team showing up against a team that they should have beaten and didn't. And Lettinen, like I said, let in 4 goals on 26 shots.
Next year they're going to have to correct that. I think Lettinen's in the last year of his deal, right?
Yeah. Yes, he is.
They bought out Niemi, and you know what? Lettinen's stats as a backup are not bad, but it's with Bishop out. It's really, it really has come to the forefront how bad Lettinen is as a number 1 goaltender. Okay, well, just touching on the Leafs one more time. Van Riemsdyk scores a hat trick. He's got 29 goals, and immediately after the game, talking to some reporters and hearing some of the chatter, it's like, boy, is this guy important to this team, and boy, is there any way that the Leafs can figure out to keep Van Riemsdyk, because, he's going to score 30. He's an integral part of their power play. Him and Tyler Bozak are part of that first power play, which is in the top 5 or 6 in the league. Both of them are likely gone. And their second power play has struggled. So it's like, the power play, especially for a team that defensively is not that great still right now, they need that power play to win games, especially Van Riemsdyk. Russ, I don't see them being able to replace him, but I don't see, even if the cap goes up, a way that they can keep Van Riemsdyk.
There is a way. There's always a way. They could move out Hainsey. There's things they could do if they really want to keep Van Riemsdyk. They could shift around some guys. Like, what does Hainsey have? Another year after this year?
Another year, $3 million. That's
you can move Hainsey for $3 million easy. If you feel like you can bring up one of the kids from Toronto, from the Marlies, and you want to keep Van Riemsdyk, so it's not impossible.
I think. Go ahead, Peter.
Let me throw this in. Is this a case of the diminishing returns to Patrick Marleau preventing his deal? I know he only has 1 year left, right? 1 year, 2 more years at $6 million.
Yeah.
Who'd you rather that $6 million going to, Marleau or Van Riemsdyk?
Well,
Marleau is a plus 35 contract.
Yeah.
You can't, you're done with that. And this is one of those things where it's a bit of a gamble, and you have to sort of look at the architecture of the team and say, did we actually really think this is going? Did we anticipate this? And I don't think anyone anticipated Van Riemsdyk getting 30 goals this year.
No,
they should have had him.
I think they did. I think they did, Peter. I think what the problem is that I think it sounded to me last summer when Russ and I and everybody was in Chicago at the draft, when they were trying to trade Van Riemsdyk as part of the deal for Hamonic, and it didn't go through. And I still to this day, I've heard rumors of why it didn't go through, but I don't know whether that was whether the rumors are true or not. So I'm not going to say what it was, but that they were willing to trade Van Riemsdyk if they could get themselves what they considered a top 4 defenseman, and the deal never happened, and the deal didn't happen at the deadline. I thought that they had signed Patrick Marleau to replace Van Riemsdyk, and then Van Riemsdyk and him are both there at training camp, and now will be there for the rest of the year. So I don't know if that was a miscalculation, but it sort of looks. I mean, they benefited from the experience of Marleau. He's played very well this year. I think he's been very helpful to the young guys on the team. So they got the benefit of that signing. But that was why, like, before the deadline, I was puzzled that the Leafs weren't going to move Van Riemsdyk, simply because this was their last chance to get something for him. And the only way I think they keep him is if they were talking about this on I was talking about this with some reporters this morning. If they sign him to the TJ Oshie type of contract, the 8-year deal to spread out the AAV to a manageable amount. But that's where the problem is. I don't think they want to sign Van Riemsdyk for 7 or 8 years. He's starting to slow down now at 29. What's it going to be like at 33, 34, 35 years old?
They might be able to get him on a 4-year deal. But I think the other thing, Peter, is while you can make a doom and gloom or is it great about Marleau's scenario, he does still play center too. Until he can't do that, a little bit of versatility does help the Leafs. And
they didn't, early in the year, they didn't want to move him to center because of, obviously it's a tougher position physically to play than the wing, but he did play it when Matthews went out, and he played it well. But ever since Matthews has been out, and this was probably one of the reasons for the Plekanec deal, is they haven't had to move Marleau to the middle. They've just simply put Plekanec in there and moved Nylander to center.
You know what? I just took a look at the Leafs cap situation. This isn't that bad. I mean, they've got a fair amount of money coming off the books. Bozak, Plekanec. I mean, not that he was there to begin with, but Komarov. And then you've also got and Polak too. And
they
can make this what?
They have players they have to lock up. That's the problem.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're the Leafs, do you really want to lock up Polak at 31 any longer than you need to?
I don't think
Komarov?
Well, you got to remember
Bozak 31. I mean, you don't. So you have room. It's when you lose that room because you've signed Van Riemsdyk, how do you adjust after that? Keeping him isn't the problem, really. It's filling the rest of the holes that his salary allocation will open up becomes the challenge. And that's where you have to look within the organization and decide, they have to make that estimation. Who can fill in here now and who can we bring up? And Mike, it also goes back to your point that you've made a number of times. There's still a gaping massive hole on a potential cup contender on the right side D, and they have to address that too.
Right. Yeah. And now the thing is, and we'll get off the Leafs here and go to the other games, but with those the two names you mentioned, Komarov is a Babcock favorite. He absolutely loves them. He uses them in every scenario. Last night they're down on a 4-on-3 power play. Hainsey, Polak, and Komarov were on for the full 2 minutes of 4-on-3 power play. So he considers Polak one of the best penalty killing defensemen that he's ever had. So yes, they could move on from them, but I would bet that there's a good chance that both of those guys would be back, not at a big salary, but they will occupy spaces on the roster. Bozak is 32 years old. He's going to be asking for a big ticket. He probably won't get it from the Leafs. I think their plan is to move Nylander up the middle to replace him. They played Nylander up the middle. He's played pretty decently, and I think, unless they go for Joe Thornton or if there's the unforeseen, Tavares thing that we talked about earlier in the week, then that's probably going to be the plan. But Van Riemsdyk, I think the problem is that he's going to want that Oshie deal. He's going to want that 7-8 year deal, and they're looking at locking up money on Matthews, on Nylander, on Marner, and I think that they won't have any flexibility if they sign Van Riemsdyk for 7 or 8 years. So that's why the general consensus is that Van Riemsdyk is gone unless something changes.
I think they could offer Van Riemsdyk 4 or 5 and say, go see what you can get. Yeah. And he may end up coming back because he can't get anything else. And then as far as Bozak, they may just let him sort of twist out there and see if there are any offers, because Bozak may not get any offers. They may end up coming back.
Well, with scoring the way it is in the NHL, do you really think that Van Riemsdyk is not going to get offered a Pozo, Franz
I think
Nielsen.
there's a
Yeah.
chance.
Van Riemsdyk's got three issues he has to weigh. Does he want to win a cup? Does he want to cash in, or does he want to stay where he knows the environment? You're only going to get 2 out of those 3 at the best.
Yeah,
it's the ball's in his court,
right.
and certainly Lou and Hunter and Dubas have all put that back to the agent and have said, your client and your client have to think about this and understand this. We respect what you do. We want them around this mark. They know that. They know what the number is in there. They know what the deal is. We can do this, but he's in a position that if he believes there's future in this team, he's going to have to allow to make room for Matthews, Marner, and Nylander as well. And that's just the simple way it is. And there are players who buy into that. There are players who do, and there's are players who don't.
Yeah, now the feeling is that he got locked up on a sweetheart deal when he was with the Flyers coming off entry level in 2012. It was a 6-year deal of $4.25 million. And this is going to be at 29 years old, this is going to be like potentially the last chance he gets to hit the jackpot.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are his challenges. And I mean, I wonder, what Van Riemsdyk looks to me like? He looks to me like the kind of player that Stasny was when he came out. No, I mean, not the same player, but I mean, the same situation where he came out of Colorado and he signed that 3-year deal with St. Louis at 7, right? 7-ish, 7?
7.5.
You know what?
7.5.
Because St. Louis was a team that was looking to contend. Players love the organization. No one says anything bad about the Blues. And that maybe that's something that he could do, is like a 3-year, $20 million thing where you've got a short term, you've got some balance there. Does it make sense? That all depends on what they know about the rest of their upcoming contracts.
Well, that was what Shattenkirk did. He wanted to go to the Rangers, but he also wanted the money. So he got the money. He got 6.8.
Yeah.
But he only got it for 4 years. So there's precedence in the league, but there is also, the need that a lot of players have for security, and a lot of players want that 7 or 8 year deal. Now, the thing is, it probably in the end won't end up being a 7 or 8 year deal for some of these players, because by year 5, if they've trailed off, they're going to get bought out, or they're going to get traded to someplace like Arizona and get buried. So,
yeah, most players don't get to call their own shots. It's just the way it is. I mean, he can if he wants to take less. What Peter said is a very good argument. He's not going to take less. That's just the way it is.
No, I agree. They're few and far between, but they do happen.
Now, one player let's just touch on the other games just quickly. Sharks beat the Oilers 4-3. Russ, I keep doubting the Sharks in terms of like them sticking in the playoff race, because without Thornton, but they beat the Oilers last night. They're not comfortable in second place in the Pacific, but right now they're in a better position right now than Anaheim or Los Angeles. So they're at 85. So and right now the second wild card is 82. So it's only a 3-point lead. That race in the West is insane. It's like you've got right now 8 teams between 85 points and 85 and 79, a 6-point spread.
It's
so
nuts.
It's absolutely crazy.
It is, and it's going to come down to the wire. I mean, it's going to be hard to predict. The interesting thing is how Colorado's staying in it. They've been managing to get points. Nathan McKinnon is the MVP of the league so far, because again, if you go by what the definition of MVP is, you take him out of that team, they're back to being a lottery team. Like, that's obvious.
Can we just go down that tangent for a second here? Because I've heard a lot of people say the MVP cannot be a player on a non-playoff team. I'm not sure if I buy that. I mean, remember back in the day, Russ, Andre Dawson with the Cubs.
They were 48 homers.
Yeah, right, exactly. He clearly had the best offensive year of anybody, and I think they were a last place team in the NL East, but he still won it. So and that's not hockey, that's baseball, but there is precedence for players. I mean, you could say that if McKinnon wasn't having the type of year that he's having right now, that team would be closer to what they were last year in terms of a record than challenging for a playoff spot and maybe missing by a point or two.
No, there's no doubt. But the thing is, the reason why that conversation, that if people are starting that, will be a waste, is because they are in it. It's not like they're a horrible team. Now, if they happen to fall out of it a week or two, before the end of the season, that's because they weren't good enough. But he's keeping them in it, literally, almost single-handedly. Him and Rantanen are keeping them in it.
Now, here's the line of demarcation, Peter. The talk of Connor McDavid being an MVP candidate. That team has not been in the playoff race for 6 weeks. He's clearly one of the best players.
I was going to say this presents a conundrum, right? If the idea of saying, well, McKinnon's an MVP candidate, even if the Avs don't make the playoffs, he should be. You can't then go and say, well, Connor McDavid isn't because the Oilers are so bad, right? Is it Connor McDavid's fault the Oilers are so bad? I think part of the point is that you look at what the most valuable player means, and then you can get into that whole non sequitur of the wording and what it means. But it basically means player most valuable to his team.
Right.
That's the generally accepted belief, although others suggest
that is the
most valuable player in the league. Isn't that what it says, right? Most valuable to his team. I think that's the direct.
Yes. There
is no player. If you take a Connor McDavid off of the Oilers, they're just a worse version of the Oilers, which isn't very good.
Right.
You take Nathan McKinnon off. They're as bad as the Canucks, maybe worse.
Right.
And it's a three-way battle between Vancouver, Arizona, and Colorado to see who's the bottom of the West. I mean, and that's not even an argument to have. If you want to have that argument, go elsewhere, because it's not worth our time. But the Oilers are such a mess that sure, Connor McDavid's had a great season, but as great as the season's been, he hasn't buoyed the team in the same way Nathan McKinnon has. And I know that's a complicated argument, and it doesn't really hold water all the time if you really get into it. But I don't see a player as valuable to their team as McKinnon is. I mean, he simply is everything to the Oilers.
Right.
And it's coming out in all aspects of his game. Or not the Oilers, to the Avalanche, and it's coming out in all aspects of his game.
Yeah, I mean,
he's having a great season in spite of what's around him.
Right.
But it's not doing anything.
He's not elevating others. McKinnon is elevating others.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. And that just calls into focus. And I'm sure there are going to be changes. I heard a snippet of something with Bob Nicholson in an interview a week or so ago where, he's basically just saying, well, we're going to look at things carefully and we're not going to make, he said the right things, but the job that Chiarelli has done, and there are plenty of critics out there, McClellan gets them to the playoffs, but they've sort of receded back to where they were before then. I mean, it's a situation where and the fan base, I think, is rightfully just completely frustrated because that team has been pathetic in spite of having top picks for, the last decade. But something is going to have to be done, and I don't know whether that's going to be a coaching change or a complete.
Well, okay, but here's the thing: before everybody fires Chiarelli off, who are you going to replace him with? Carolina's also looking for a GM. There's not that many GMs out there now. If you think you could simply just dip into the assistant market and every one of them is going to just jump at a job, that's not always the case. So you look at it; it's going to be complicated, and that's where Chiarelli could stay. I mean, look, Kevin Lowe couldn't get the job done either. This is not all on Peter Chiarelli. This has been going on for a long time now in Edmonton. I mean, a very long time where nobody's been able to do the right thing. And the common denominator, unfortunately, is the ownership. But you can't trade your owner. And
the indicators out there is that the presence of Wayne Gretzky has gained. All of a sudden Paul Coffey is involved. And
what did Wayne Gretzky really do for Arizona other than get people interested?
Not, I don't think
that Russ, that's what they need though. It's the same thing as you were saying about the young guys at MSG. You've got to still show hope. You've got to still give people hope, right? And Edmonton, I know we've talked about Vancouver being a bit of a vile place in terms of media and relations and pressure and stuff. What place has been worse than Edmonton in the last 10 years? None.
Yeah,
but bringing in those guys, whether it's right or wrong, that's the marketing side of things. But the problem with Edmonton is everything crosses over. There's, you've got, if Coffey's here, he could be doing some scouting, and, Lowe, he knows all about winning. And the problem is Bob Nicholson was to go in there and provide a sense of order and direction, and it's not happening. And whether it falls on Daryl Cates's lap or whatever, but organizational behavior and stuff is a funny thing. You sometimes have to peel. They're like onions, right? You got to keep peeling it back, and eventually you find it. But if no one wants to peel it back because they know where the problem is, you get roadblocks put up. And I bet you there's a lot of roadblocks in there.
Yeah.
And the people who are supposed to be doing their jobs probably are finding it really frustrating, because you can't get it done there because there's so many layers. You bring in Coffey, you bring in Gretzky. Messier's a spokesperson for him too. I mean, it's
right. Well, that's what my basic point is. You just because you're a former athlete doesn't mean you know how to run a front office or understand the business model of the salary cap or any of those things.
Well, see, that's the difference. It's funny because if Gretzky, if Coffey, if Messier, if these guys are being brought out as sort of goodwill ambassadors representing the organization, that's all fine and good. But I get the sense that, there's talk of Coffey having, not head coach, but being part of the coaching staff going forward. I mean, we're talking about them having actual roles. Now, all I know is in Toronto, Daryl Sittler's an ambassador, guys like Darcy Tucker, Wendell Clark. They're beloved. The fans love them. They can do no wrong, but they're not being asked to be part of the management team. They're not being asked to show Oscar Klefbom or Adam Larson how to rush the puck.
What's Coffey going to do? Teach them to skate like him?
Right.
It's not going to happen.
I can give you this as an example. In the early days of the NHL, Bill Cook was like the Rocket Richard. He went into coaching. I know a few former Rangers that were under his coaching tutelage and said he was an abysmal coach.
Yeah.
A great player, one of the great players in the league of his era, couldn't coach anything.
Right. Yeah. So just a couple of updates on some injuries. Boston lost 3 players in their last game, Chara, DeBrusk, and Torrey Krug. Chara and DeBrusk are out for a couple of games. Doesn't sound like serious. Torrey Krug is a game time decision for their next game. They still have Bergeron out, but everything that I've heard regarding the Bruins is that most of these players are going to be back for in time for the playoffs. But it's one of those things where, all these guys coming in after being dinged up, they may be playing, but there may not be 100%. And how will that affect a team that was rolling completely for like the last few months? And Peter, I saw a tweet this morning that said Jacob Trouba is getting very close.
Yeah, it's actually, he might play tonight. He's listed as ready. Apparently he and Maurice made some funny comment about him basically wanting to go and him trying to hold him back and stuff like that. It's starting to look up for the Jets. I mean, it's been pretty dark, but Stasny's playing tonight. Trouba, I think he'll go. That's my gut.
Any update on Scheifele?
Scheifele is day-to-day contact on the weekend. Lowry is day-to-day contact on the weekend. Enstrom is very close. He's being held back. Kulikov is day-to-day, and they're in the report that Jeff Hamilton and the Winnipeg Free Press came out with us said they're looking for more data on Kulikov. So I'm not sure what that means. Hendricks is 6 to 8 weeks, lower body. Hutchinson day-to-day, Mason day-to-day concussion, or no, lower body with Mason, and they called up Eric Comrie to back up Hellebuck. I mean, it is an infirmary here, but we're starting to see some light.
Well, right now, the most important, the most valuable players in the NHL are the trainers.
Yeah.
at this point, this is where what it's going to look like from here on out. Healthier teams are going to go further in the playoffs. The ones that are really banged up, it's gonna hurt their playoff chances.
It does. You can put the most skilled team in the world together.
Right.
There's the element of injury luck that always comes into play, and those who have it and those who don't.
Well,
and that's just the case.
We're talking 3.5 weeks until the end of the regular season, and this is that sort of gray zone where, Austin Matthews is almost ready to come back. You know what? Stay out a couple extra games. Get to 100% because this, don't be in a rush to come back.
If he can't get to 100% even for the duration of the regular season, that's the problem. He can get a little healthier, but
well, every bit counts, Russ. I'm just saying, like for a team like Toronto and a team like Winnipeg, they can't move up, they can't move down. In a sense, they're just biding time until April the 12th when the playoffs start. So why risk your players?
Well, this is why the bottom dwelling teams are the worst teams for really playoff bound teams to play right now. Those teams have nothing to lose. There's young guys there. There's guys on the last year of their deals, and they're looking to take your guys out. And it's a dangerous place to be.
And last night, everybody was excited because the Leafs called up Andreas Janssen, who is fourth in the AHL in scoring at 26 goals, having a fantastic year. A lot of people think, he's going to be a guy who plays in the NHL next year. And Babcock, because of the way the game broke, played him 7 minutes. The fourth line was on the ice for 2 goals. He was only on the ice for 1 of them. And in the third period, he shortened his bench to 3 lines. And now tonight, Matt Martin is playing against Buffalo because they think it's going to get physical. So that's what I mean. It's like even when they're in this gray zone, Babcock wants to play the players that Babcock wants to play. So, all right, guys.
Well, at the end of the day, you'd rather Matt Martin get hurt than a player who's really going to help you in the playoffs anyhow.
Well, I'd rather neither of them got hurt,
well,
but
I think you're going to risk Matt Martin's health before you're going to risk a big-time player. That's my point.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys, great show. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Peter Tessier, for Russell Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.